Hi everyone, this is Roxana and I'm with Kate and Rosie. Our Facebook Live is going to be in English today. Nuestro Facebook Live va a ser en inglés hoy. But if you have any questions, English or Spanish, go ahead and comment them below. Si tiene pregunta en inglés o español, puede poner su comentario abajo.
Well, and we have two other guests.
Yes, we do. I forgot about them. We have Nora, hi, and Winnie. Say hi, Winnie.
Winnie, say hi. Can you wave?
Say hi.
No. Okay, so our topic for today is going to be, what happens if I file on my own? What are the consequences, common mistakes that we've seen people face? If you have any questions, like I said, you can comment, but you can also call or text us to our number 512-599-8500. We're also very active on our Facebook messages, so go ahead and message us through there. Anyways, what's next? I'm not used to doing it in English.
It's kind of weird.
So, this is kind of weird, Rosie.
Yeah, we'll just dive into it. So I think we came up with this idea, Roxana and I, we saw a lot of, people just taking risk and filing on their own, and then they come to the office and everything's confusing. So we just kind of wanted to take a brief moment to talk about common risk, about filing on your own, common obstacles that we see other people face, and we just want to let you know, we're here with you. We're here to let you know the good and the bad and the ugly sometimes, but most importantly, give you the most important information you need to know. So.
And I think one of the things that, common mistakes or a common misconception is eligibility. I am a U.S. citizen and Rosie is my wife. She is an immigrant, but I'm a U.S. citizen, so she should qualify for something, right? Mm-hmm. So, Kate, tell us a little bit about that. Just because I'm a U.S. citizen and my spouse is undocumented, does that mean she has to get some sort of documents?
Right, yeah, no, I mean, and honestly, that's the way it should be, right? And and it should be so easy to go to navigate the immigration process that you can just do it on your own and that you wouldn't need a lawyer and that it would be something simple. Unfortunately, that's not the way that our system works. Our immigration system is as complex as the tax code. It's very complicated to know who's eligible for what, whether they need a waiver, whether they're inadmissible, what forms do you file, and there really isn't just a sort of comprehensive guide online that can give you that information. The truth is, in a married couple, when someone who's undocumented is married to a U.S. citizen, there's all sorts of questions that we have to answer about where is this person? Are they in the United States? Or are they here unlawfully? How did they enter? Did they enter through the river and get apprehended? Did they come in through the airport? Did they use a fake birth certificate? Were they brought in the backseat of a car as a child? Did they use somebody else's tourist visa? And if so, they might need a fraud waiver. I mean, there's all these sorts of inquiries that go into, can you keep sharing with her? Into a case like that tells us, in general, someone who's undocumented, who is in the United States or out of the United States, who marries a U.S. citizen, is able to apply for permanent residency. But if they're in the U.S. and they entered without a visa and they weren't inspected or admitted, then they have to go through the consular process. So that's a long answer to your question. It isn't just as simple as 1, 2, 3, although it should be.
Yeah. And a lot of the times people think, it's all on the petitioner, me, the U.S. citizen, but actually they would look more into the history of the immigrant. Let's say Rosie's my wife, they would look at her history, not really mine. So that's something that we need to take into account. Another thing you mentioned, that some cases take multiple steps. Kate, is immigration really good about kind of listing the steps online, or you finish step 1, here you go, this is step 2?
No, there isn't a comprehensive guide out there. There are websites, but you have to be really careful because everybody's case is so different. As I mentioned, just the question about how someone entered the country can take a case in different directions. And so just because one person had it easy doesn't mean the next person's going to have it easy in the same way. And so there isn't a guide out there. And on top of that, this is something that changes all the time is, you know, what form, how much does the form cost, what address do you send it to, what, you know, version do you need, in what order do you do this, what kind of evidence do they need to approve it, do they send a request for evidence, how long does the medical exam stay good. I mean, these are all things that literally change on a weekly basis. Excuse my children. We have 1 cup of ice cream and it's causing distress. Here, can you share? Just share with her. Please keep sharing. Thank you. And so, no, unfortunately, there's not just a simple. It's not simple enough to create a book. In fact, I don't have the Kurzban's, but what we call sort of the Immigration Bible is the Kurzban's book, and it's literally like this thick. And we refer to it all the time, and this is with 2 attorneys in the office who have collectively like 25 years of experience between us, and we're constantly like referring back to this book because it's such a complicated system.
Especially nowadays, because I've had, you know, people who are like, well, I did my case back in the early 90s, and like now I can do my spouse's case because I did it on my own back in the day, and it was so easy. And
right. Yeah. Well, this is like, yeah, we recently met someone whose sister had been in the U.S. for a long time, like decades, and had done the immigration process herself. Just keep sharing. And so they're fighting over ice cream. So in this case, the sister was like familiar with the process as it used to be, and so she guided her sister through it, and they made a couple of wrong turns due to changes in the system, and as a result, 2 years later, this woman still didn't have her green card and was facing not even having a work permit, when it was just related to not knowing the system as it operates today. So it's just, it's ever changing, and it's very complex.
So it sounds like you really need an expert that's really evaluating all these important factors that immigration or whoever is going to make the decision on your case.
For sure, yeah.
And so I think we rely very well on like notario públicos. You know, my cousin did the same thing, same situation, same everything. But when you rely on these people that are not experts in that field, you run into these things, right? I don't know about you, but I've seen it. You know, in our experience in the office here, like silly mistakes that you think, man, that one thing, if only we would have done that one thing, we could have gotten better results. Or if only, you know, and unfortunately in immigration, the if only isn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like the result of a little mistake can have such big consequences in someone's life. It can mean the difference between losing your job or not, getting put in deportation proceedings or not. I mean, if you miss one document, you know, let's say you're applying for an adjustment of status and you're expecting to get your work permit in 6 months, and you miss one document in the sponsorship application, that's going to delay a work permit by 2 months. I mean, that's severe impact.
And that is, I guess, best case scenario, getting a case delayed,
yes,
and not, you know, ending in deportation proceedings, which we've seen in the past where people make a mistake and somehow they end up in removal proceedings.
Well, and this happens a lot with the notarios, and this is something that I think is super important to remind people, is that, you know, in a lot of Latin American countries, a notario is someone who's an attorney, and they have an additional license on top of that. So it's someone who's gotten a lot of training and education. But in the United States, to be a notario, all you have to do is mail in basically a payment, and you get the stamp back. It's like $30 or something, right? And you don't, no training is required. And so unfortunately, a lot of people will just, you know, they're notarios, and they'll tell people that they know the immigration system and how to fill out the forms, but they really have no training, and it's quite dangerous. And the truth is, like, this stuff is expensive. I mean, I understand when people, especially like a young couple, they're just getting off the ground, they just want to get the green card, and it's like, we're savvy, we can read online, we can figure this out, let's just do this ourselves and save some money, you know, so we can save up for a house fund or whatever. Well, unfortunately, if you get one little thing wrong, you delay your ability to be able to work, or you get yourself in removal proceedings, and then it just sends your financial futures, you know, into a tailspin. And the truth is, there's services out there. I'm getting ice cream spilled all over me. There's nonprofit legal services agencies that do immigration work, and so It's super important right now in this day and age with Trump in office and all of the changes that are coming and all the requirements that you don't miss a thing, you don't fill the form out wrong, you don't miss a document, that you guys get expert assistance on your cases, and it doesn't have to be from our office, although we would love to help you. But if you're low income, go to one of the nonprofit agencies. We'll be happy to refer you to them. But please don't go to a notario público. You know, don't just rely on your friends or your sister's advice because she's been here forever. I mean, I think essentially right now, one of the only cases I would say someone might be okay doing on their own is like a green card renewal.
Yeah.
If there's no criminal issues, you don't owe any back taxes, you haven't been out of the country, you don't have any fraud in your history, it's just super, super clean, you can renew your green card. That's not a complicated situation. But if you're applying for a green card, applying for citizenship, this is the era in which it's just really critical to have an expert backing you up.
And going back to the notaria thing, I am a notaria. I have the actual stamp, but honestly, I really don't even know. Our secretary at the time did the whole process for me. I just had to sign a form, but she filled out my whole information. And I can honestly tell you, I had no training and I had no involvement in me getting that stamp or that label as notaria. So, you know, it's very complicated. And also from personal experience, my brother, he just did an immigration process. And he was like, well, you should do it. You work at a law firm. And I was like, oh, no, that's not how it works. I did not feel comfortable. I've been here for almost 3 years. You know, I have a lot of knowledge in the process, but just actually doing the paperwork and trusting myself to do it, I couldn't even, you know, do it for my own family member. And it would have saved money, obviously, but, you know, you kind of don't want to put a family member in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, not for something that's this big of a deal. For something that matters this much, it's not the area to save money. You know, save money on yard work or house cleaning or clothes or, you know, any, like, things where it makes sense to save money. On something that is literally setting up your future and the future of your children and your grandchildren, it's one of those areas where you really do get what you pay for. Unless you're at a nonprofit and they're not charging you because they're grant funded. You know, I do feel like the nonprofits provide a really good service. They have limited resources and they can't help everybody, but if you're low income, you know, don't do the work to get to the nonprofit. It used to be, like before Trump came in office, I used to say to people, look, if you're really savvy, you know, you've got a college degree, you feel really comfortable with tech, you want to spend time to get on the sort of like message boards and try and figure this out, the risk isn't all that great if you have a clean case and you're certain that you're eligible. Come over here. Sit right here, Nora. But now we're in an era of enforcement, and it's like just being a good person and a deserving person doesn't get you out of hot water if you get put before ICE like it used to be, and so it's just not. It's not safe anymore, and I'm sorry to say that, and hopefully it'll get better, but it really just isn't right now. It's a good time to sort of try and figure it out on your own, mostly because even if there's like not a criminal issue or something, there were memos that were published by the Trump administration last July that said no more are we going to issue a request for evidence if something's missing in a case, we're just going to deny it. Or we give the discretion to the adjudicators to deny if anything's missing. So each adjudicator, each officer on an individual basis can decide, like, oh, you forgot the birth certificate, I'm just going to deny it, in which case you lose your filing fees.
Yikes.
And now they're referring every denied case to deportation proceedings. So it's like, it's huge, huge consequences just for missing a document. You know, it's like, these are crazy times we're living in. And I know if you're watching this, you're paying attention to immigration, and so you know it's crazy.
So let's say, you know, I did this on my own. Maybe you know, tomorrow I get an RFE. Like, what would be the best thing I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because I already started this on my own. So now that I'm like, oh no, I've seen the results of, you know, now they're asking me for more information. What would be the approach here? Like, how do you make this a better situation?
Yeah, it depends on the RFE. So basically, call us right away. Get an appointment. We usually can get people in within a few days for a consultation, and we can sort of take over and respond to the request for evidence. Tell you what we need to do. We'll set a strategy. and figure out. And if the wrong thing was filed and we need to do something different, then we'll figure that out too. Hey Laura, can you get these toys for Winnie? Get the toys for Winnie? I'm covered in ice cream.
So we wanted to kind of break down the cost of filing with an attorney from the beginning versus what we see, the cost of filing with an attorney after you've already filed.
So, yeah, great question. We do charge more money when we have to clean up, because basically if we get to just start clean from the beginning, we fill out the forms, we submit everything, we've got copies of everything, we are set on the strategy from the get-go and it's clean. If somebody files on their own and they come in and we're doing an RFE, then it's like, oh, you didn't apply for the travel permit, or you forgot to apply for the work permit, or you put the wrong category, and then it's like we're having to spend time figuring out what was done right, what was done wrong. Okay, you can go.
Yay.
And then cleaning it up, and honestly that takes more effort for us. It's just so much cleaner and simpler and faster just to start from the get. That doesn't mean if you filed on your own and you want to convert, you shouldn't do it, but it definitely, I hope they're okay out there. They're going.
Watch the kids.
I think Fidel's watching.
Yeah, Fidel watching.
You know, we do what we call cleanup, you know.
Well, and also I've seen cases where they get a RFE's request for more evidence, and we're like, okay, we need to start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even just cleaning up. There's some cases where I've seen where we're like, all right, well, what you did, we're gonna kind of like push it aside, throw it away, and it has to be, you know, clean slate, start from the beginning. So.
I mean, here, if you guys who are watching remember one thing and nothing else from this video, please remember this. Do not leave the country and go to a consular appointment without consulting with an attorney first. I don't care how many thousands of cases the notario who is helping you tells you that they have done. The worst and most awful thing that we see is people who did a consular process on their own, or they went to a notario and they did the I-130 and it got approved, and they did this provisional waiver and they got approved. So it's building their confidence in their own abilities or in the ability of the notarios who's helping them. They get to the consulate and they go out for their interview thinking they're coming right back in, and boom, they get hit with a ground of inadmissibility that was totally unexpected, and you're going to be stuck out at worst for life. I mean, yeah, for life, at best for like 15 months. So if take one thing, it's do not leave the country to go to a consular interview until you've consulted with an attorney.
And we've had one case that I can remember since I worked here. The couple came in, consulted with us, and I guess they took that information and they did it on their own. The I-130, they got it approved. They did a provisional waiver on their own because they felt confident. They got an RFE. They came back to us, we did that work, and then the third step is the consular process, and we're like, hey, we can help you with this step. They decided to do it on their own, they left the country, and then a few months later, they called us back. He was stuck outside.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is not us trying to scare people, but more educate people on like what's happening right now, and we wouldn't like anyone, you know, be stuck outside. Unfortunately for this couple, their case scenario was, you know, we were able to file a waiver that was going to take about 1.5 years to process while they're outside. So, you know, it wasn't the end of the world for them, but you know, now you're in another country for 1.5 years.
Right.
Like, how do you change your lifestyle?
It's
and
devastating,
your plans?
especially if you have families. I'm remembering one other thing that I think is really important is not to ever take advice from immigration. I can't even tell you how many times people you call the 1-800 number and you think that you've got someone who knows what they're talking about on the phone because they work for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service. You would think that they would know what they're talking about. But I can't even count how many times people have come to us and have told us the advice that they've gotten, and it's like exactly the wrong, bad advice.
Well, that's not what they said, and we're
Right.
like,
But the truth is, these people on the phones are contract workers. They don't even work for USCIS. I mean, they've gotten very minimal training. They do not know what they're talking about, and sometimes they want to try and be helpful because maybe they're decent people, so they try and like help someone who calls it. Most of them are like very robotic, and they're like, this is all I can say, goodbye. But some of them are like, I'm trying to be a good person. You know what you should do? You should do this, this, or that. But it's like they have no idea what this person should do. And one of the most egregious examples I can think of was a couple who had been living, they met in Mexico. The wife was a U.S. citizen. They came to the U.S. He came on a tourist visa, and his visa was about to expire. And they were like, we think we want to stay. What do we do? And they went to the immigration office, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, like the biometrics office. And the officer there was like, oh, your visa's about to expire. You should go back to Mexico and come back in so you get a new stamp and then apply for your green card, which is like, none of that makes any sense. So they went back, tried to come back in, and Border Patrol was like, no, you can't do that. You've been here 6 months previously on your visa. It's clear to us that you're trying to stay in the United States. We're canceling your visa. We're issuing a deportation. And then this couple were having to spend the next, at that time things were faster. So it took us like a year to get them back in. But it was, this was a young couple, pre-kids, but it was devastating for them because it was like they were starting their lives in the United States. She had a job. It was like this was all going, and just that one piece of bad advice like derailed their lives together. And that's just one example of 50.
The best advice I've gotten from someone who consulted with us was she's like, well, I called the immigration hotline and the lady was like, that doesn't sound right. You should call an attorney. And I was like, that's so rare.
They never say that. They never say that.
And I was like, wow, like you got a good officer because they would have, any other officer would have just given you any, BS advice and hung up.
The truth is a lot of immigration officers don't like attorneys because they know that we're not going to put up with any crap on behalf of our clients, that we're going to be like, no, you can't do that. No, that's not the policy. I'd like to speak with your supervisor, or I'm going to sue you. It's like they know that they can't mess around. And I had heard for years that the officers would treat people differently if they had an attorney with them or not. But I remember one time I had some clients who had an interview in San Antonio, and I was meeting them there, and I got stuck behind an accident, so I was like 15 minutes late. And the officer was like, you either need to come in without your attorney or give up your interview. So they were just like, we want to get this done, we're going in. But I got there 15 minutes later, and so I was like, I want to go back to the interview. And when I walked in, she was like, oh, hi, so-and-so, nice to see you, sit down. And it all went super smoothly, and they got approved. And then after we walked out together, and they were like, everything changed the minute you walked in the door. Up until the point you got here, the way that this person was acting toward us was very rude. And of course, not everyone's like this. I don't mean to make it sound like if you go alone, they're going to be rude to you. They're human, so some of them are enforcement minded, that some of them are helpful. It's in a lot of ways it's a luck of the draw. But I will say that unfortunately, in my experience, sometimes they are on better behavior when they know that an attorney's there watching how they're reacting. And there are moments in an interview when I'm like, we're not going down this line of questioning. This is an inappropriate line of questioning. I'm instructing my clients not to answer that question, and you just shut it down. And sometimes you just need that protection. And in our office, even in the clean cases, when it's like no criminal issues, no joint sponsor issues, this is just what we would call like a slam dunk case, we still won't send our clients without an attorney because we just feel like we always want to be there with our clients when they're at that final, phase that is honestly the most important step. It's like this is do or die at the end, and that's when you really need to have someone on your team.
And also, one thing that I tell our clients is, if an immigration officer crosses the line, at any point you can stop the interview, but also we're able to make complaints. Like you can go to their supervisor and file a complaint against them for inappropriate behavior.
And we go every quarter. We go to a meeting with the supervisors in San Antonio, with the immigration lawyers, and we're like, this is what our clients are dealing with. This is what happened to me the other day, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we'll talk to that person. It's like we're constantly letting them know what's going on behind the scenes, so that people can get away with shenanigans.
I know we talked about changes in policies. One of them was the RFEs, and then the notice to intent to deny. And another one that I like to point out is the new green card, mailing policy that kind of changed last year. Which also I feel like this one is super important. So before last year, when your green card was arriving in the mail, the post office officer, he can just drop it off in the mailbox and, you know, go about with the rest of his route. Now they're asking that someone has to be there to sign. And what happens if no one's there to sign?
It gets sent back. And actually, we had a client recently who was a former client and did a renewal on her own because she felt like she could handle it. And they sent her the work permit. She wasn't home. It got sent back, and she's now been without a work permit for 8 months because she did an inquiry and they said it's going to be 90 days. She did another inquiry and they said it was going to be, I forget however many days. And then they finally responded and they're like, okay, we'll get your new card to you within 120 days. So when that change happened, we switched our policy to change on the forms. We always get our clients documents and cards sent. Not the documents, the receipt notices can go to their house. But the cards, we always want them here because we need someone to sign for them. Because it really is almost a black hole if it gets sent back to them. And if you don't let them know or call them within a certain period of time, they'll destroy the document and you have to start over from the beginning. And I mean, like, people who live in apartment complexes, the mailman doesn't go to your apartment complex. I mean, it's a total disaster. This is another one of these, like, Trump policies that supposedly is to combat fraud, that, like, there was, I guess, this big problem that people were stealing green cards from the mail. I don't believe it. I think that actually what they were trying to do is block legal immigration as part of, like, the invisible wall. You know, it's one more policy that makes it difficult to get legal status in the United States, and it's really unfortunate. But it's if you are requesting a card, the address needs to be an address in which at which someone is always there to sign when the mailman shows up.
And there's no tracking number. You know, when you in Amazon now they have that thing where, like, they show in the map where the truck is and, like, it's almost gonna arrive in your house. None of that, you know. It's
like you take a picture of it on your porch.
Amazon's doing a better job.
I mean, honestly, we're talking about an agency that took children away from their families and didn't even track whose kids they had taken. Like, they are not, you know.
So I think that's another big reason, because, and it's also, I know with some mail, when I'm not home, they kind of put a sticker on the door and they're like, hey, pick it up at the post office. They also don't do that.
Right.
Like, it's just,
it's a mess.
You know, you're not there, you know, on a Wednesday at 1 p.m. We're sorry, we're sending it straight back to immigration.
Right.
So that's another thing to point out. Any other changes in policy that you can remember? And
I mean,
all of these have just, I think, towards the mid to the end of last year, it was like policy and change, you know, back to back, and then you're getting hit left and right.
Oh, totally. I mean, we're waiting on the new public charge rules, or how's it going to affect people who have received public benefits, but they're already applying new public charge rules at the consulate, so people going out, even if they have a joint sponsor, are being hit with an admissibility if they haven't proven that this joint sponsor is someone who will, like, support them for the rest of their lives. You have to have some sort of explanation of why this is a tight relationship between the two people. Or, like, alien smuggling, if somebody goes to the consulate but they at any point in time have had a child in the United States who was undocumented, even if that kid has gone on to become a U.S. citizen, they could be hit with alien smuggling. So there's all these little gotchas that are happening in the world of immigration. Hi. Come in here and you can play with the toys. Where do you go? I don't know what you're talking about. Hi guys. Were you looking for me? Hi. Come here. Thank you.
So, I mean, anything else? Do you have any questions in the comments?
I don't see anything. Everybody thinks Winnie is cute.
Oh, thanks. Winnie, can you say hi? Did you already say hi?
Look at this cutie.
You want to blow him a kiss? You can give me a kiss. Blow him a kiss and put it in your heart. Oh, you said it. That's when she says I love you.
I think another thing is just, like, you know, documents you need. I think a lot of people are very hesitant about, with or without an attorney, sending their personal information, you know, to immigration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're applying for legal status, then you have to share your information to get it. What are you talking about?
Squishy.
They're in the treasure box. Ask me then where the treasure box is.
Squishy.
Oh, the ones we got. We'll look for them in a minute. When he's in gymnastics. What were we talking about? I totally got distracted.
Documentation.
What else is important to know about documentation? I can't think of anything on that front other than it's just really important. Like, I remember when we went to a meeting after this memo came out that said if something's missing, we can just deny your case. They were like, okay, if someone needs to supply a divorce decree to show that they were, for example, eligible to remarry the person who's petitioning for them, and they forget the divorce decree, we could just deny the case. But if they forget, like, page 21 of 25 pages, we might issue an RFE. But that example was just like, it kind of blew my mind because it just goes to show you how easily they are willing to just deny someone's case if they forget just a document. So the document checklists are very, very important.
Also, is it like a very experienced person, checking your application as it arrives to immigration? Who's checking?
We call them the mailroom monkeys. I feel like sometimes it's just a horde of monkeys, like opening packages and tossing things around. I mean, again, it's contract workers. They're not long-term employees of the government, and they are operating off of checklists. And so sometimes, like for example, if someone's doing an adjustment and they had a legal entry but they don't have the document, and you're trying to submit an affidavit, you have to like write in big red marker, for supervisor review, just to get them to like pay attention to the fact that this isn't fit into their typical checklist. That's okay. But there's like little tips and tricks like that to get it past the mailroom monkeys and into the supervisors.
Yeah. And we always tell people every case is different. So having all these contract workers just working off a checklist, trying to figure out should I move it to the next step or not, is not really ideal.
Yeah, it's not ideal, and unfortunately they're the ones making the determination on like an I-864. Have you proven legal entry? This is not someone who's experienced, and so you got to make it really, really easy for them to get past that step.
Which is another, I guess, important thing about having an attorney is like we have our, I guess, the way we set our packets. They're organized, they're clearly labeled, they have a cover page. We it's like an index for them, like page 1 is this, page 2 is this, like, trying to make it as easy as possible, and we created those formats just to make sure to get, through that initial contract worker who's just going through their checklist.
Yeah. The hoops and the loops of having to get through that. No, for sure. Is there anything else you want to add?
No. And we don't have any questions. My mom's watching.
Well, as always, help us share, like, or comment this video. Anybody who's looking for immigration, just a question, you can call or text our office. We would be more than happy to assess your case and confirm that we can take, consult with you. And if you just have a general question, we're here to get some answers for you as well. So the best number to call or text us is the 512-599-8500. I'm going to say that one more time for you guys. It's 512-599-8500. Other than that, we'll be seeing you next week on our Wednesday episode. And we're just doing this video to keep you informed. We know that sometimes our current president can cause some stress or some anxiety and some fears, and we just want to clear them out and make sure that we're still here to back you up and just navigate the immigration system, because truth be told, most of the people in our office have gone through this process. We are aware of the importance of this document. We know how powerful it is and how it can, make it or break it for you. So we take our job very seriously, and we're here to just provide you the correct information and, tell you the truth. So.
And next week we're having a divorce attorney on. It will be a Spanish video to talk about, immigration and divorce and how the two sort of impact each other.
And we'll touch on adoption, and you guys send us your suggestion. If you ever have been wanting to talk to a family attorney, this is a time where we can just nail all of those concerns you might have. So, let's all say bye.
Okay. Nora, can you say bye?
Bye.